All right, what's up, everybody? So we're back with some more cybersecurity news and articles. So today we're going to read about why cybersecurity acumen matters in the C-suite. So we're going to see what they're talking about. So this article was written by Eric Gatson, who is a CIO, Chief Information Officer, and Vice President of Global Executive Engagement, Tanium. So the subtitle is until CEOs are and boards prioritize learning more about mitigating threats, organizations are leaving themselves and their businesses open to the potential for disaster. So this is a commentary article. So while the mounting competitive pressure to leverage generative artificial intelligence, Gen AI, now is the time for CEOs to better understand the technology themselves. So we're just gonna click on this article next. So cybersecurity deserves this same level of attention, and so does the discrepancy between C-level enthusiasm and skill level. Leveraging AI tools, cyber criminals and their attacks have become more sophisticated, and with this technology comes a swath of security concerns when used in a company environment. As Gen AI uses grows with organizations, so does tension across executive teams and in the boardroom, especially as the Chief Information Security Officer role shifts in remit. We're also seeing significant spikes in data breaches. All of this coalesces to signal the need for more cybersecurity acumen across the C-suite in order to provide leadership and guidance to firms. Why? Because enduring companies understand how to navigate one of the most common and consequential risks in business. Cybersecurity acumen at the top of the org chart can significantly impact the company's overall security posture and ability to manage risk. This in turn translates into several additional benefits for the company. For starters, companies can now integrate security into decision making processes and strategic direction. This should be an afterthought. Cyber risk lurks everywhere and crops up in decisions than people realize. It's not just an overly simply passwords or opening phishing emails. Software as a service tools can serve as an entry point for man in the middle attacks that threaten businesses. Yeah, so my thought on this is that you do have to know the language in order to be more successful. It helps if you know the vocabulary and you know the new terms and you know what's going on in the industry in order to be able to have a conversation about it and to be a subject matter expert and to be able to give an example. Even if you don't know what somebody's talking about, you can the more you know, the more examples you can give about what that person is talking about to help them understand the way forward. Leaders in 2024, which is us, must recognize the need for security. While businesses have access to incredible levels of technology that can help a company thrive, so do malicious actors. Understanding the variety of sources a threat can stem from better equips a leader to make strategic choices that bolster the protection of data and intellectual property rather than put it at risk, at further risk. That said, security is not always cheap. Hold on. That said, security is not always cheap, and finding qualified resources in an already scarce security and AI market is challenging at best. Resource allocation is critical in the decision making process to balance both attention to threats and business costs. In addition, in today's economic climate, budgets are being heavily scrutinized for technology and business leaders. Those with a broader and deeper understanding of the risks that come with deprioritizing security are better prepared to make smart decisions about where to allocate investments. Furthermore, attaining that kind of security knowledge intrinsically improves leadership's ability to collaborate with all different internal teams. These conversations drive quicker, better decisions, especially during a crisis, while increasing the respect between the Office of the Chief Information Officer and the Chief Security Officer. Enabling that sort of alignment will also bring better, more articulate conversations with the board that protect businesses against risk. Attack surfaces continue to grow for businesses in every industry, which only makes transparency and collaboration more necessary. Regulators are rising to the challenge of finding ways to deal with this new cyber reality, and the pressure is mounting. You can see this in new rules and directives from the Security and Exchange Commission and in regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation and the Digital Operational Resilience Act, just to name a few. Non-compliance is costly both financially and in terms of losing an opportunity to defend against attackers, but compliance requires departments and leaders to communicate in order to create and execute new strategies and policies. However, the burden of proof still falls to top leadership to make this happen. It's in the C-suite best interest and within its responsibilities to protect data and assets as best as it can for customers and the firm. Financial and reputational impact due to cyber attacks are a consideration that must be recognized in all major decisions at the board level. The rising threat landscape creates a perfect storm that, if left unchecked, leaves businesses vulnerable to major loss. Credibility allows senior leaders to perform better on the job. Cybersecurity is a critical topic on every board's agenda as we continue to see stories about threats sneaking through technological infrastructure and impacting the customer experience on that scale. Leaders need the kind of street cred to effectively lead a dynamic, smart organization of technologists and operations professionals. Few have the kind of pointed knowledge to recommend, lead, or drive change toward a more secure work culture, only making it that much more critical. Those who can think technically while still demonstrating a business mindset will be best positioned to help their organization succeed. Some of the strongest leaders and executives I have encountered are those who not only know what they are talking about, but also have a keen ability to explain the why of what they're talking about in terms that resonate with those who are unfamiliar with the subject matter. It is time for experts to direct the action instead of actors. In the words of one of my mentors, leaders have followers. Managers should just tell people what to do in a hierarchy. It's not enough to just know your stuff. You need to be able to equip others with that knowledge as well. That's what makes you indispensable as a leader. And with the average tenure of most cyber leaders at less than a year and a half, those of us in these positions can't afford to ignore that kind of reality. Huh. Commanding the space rather than putting yourself in a situation where you're forced to react isn't good for the business, but good for the leader too. Leaders can't afford to ignore the need for this kind of knowledge. Cybersecurity acumen is no longer specialized or reserved for only the educated few. This was reflected in a recent decision by the Securities and Exchange Commission requiring companies to report a material breach within 4 days of occurrence. While it did not specifically call for cybersecurity expertise in the boardroom for public companies, it has long been highlighted that only a small percentage of publicly traded companies have such expertise. Although the mandate ultimately did not pass, this is a proof point of how seriously agencies and regulatory bodies are taking cybersecurity, and it's only a matter of time before this becomes official guidance. Prioritizing risk management and assessment must come from the top down. Until CEOs and boards have prioritized learning more about these threats and how to mitigate them, organizations are leaving themselves and their businesses open to the potential for disaster. But the leaders who spend the time and effort to study the game, the players, and the playbook toward better threat protection will see dividends for years to come. So let's actually do that. So the game is threat protection, and we'll see for dividends to come. So let's focus on threat protection. So let's look at cybersecurity topics. Threat intelligence. So let's do threat intelligence and vulnerability and threats. So we're going to move on now to these next stories. So whatever CEO should know about Gen AI. So we're focused on threat intelligence. Okay, so let's read this. Chinese APTs. Oh, let's see. Site can't be reached. Let's try again. Okay, Chinese APTs cash in on years of edge device attacks. The sophisticated Chinese cyber attacks today rest on important groundwork laid during the pandemic and before. So this is written by Nate Nelson, who's a contributor to Dark Reading. Okay, so now let's look. Let's read. So Chinese threat actors are operating at a higher level today than ever before, thanks to years of trial and error style attacks against mass numbers of edge devices. The networking devices are a known favorite of China's advanced persistent threats. And why wouldn't they be? Sitting on the outer banks of an enterprise network, they not only allow threat actors to weigh in, they also double as useful nodes for botnets. They offer opportunities for lateral movement, they often store sensitive data, and network defenders have a harder time seeing into and securing them than they do other kinds of network computers. Over time, Chinese APTs have been improving on their edge attack capabilities. Since 2018, Sophos has traced a distinct evolution in tactics from naive, low-level attacks came more sophisticated campaigns against massive numbers of devices, followed by a period of more targeted attacks against specific organizations. On December 4, 2018, Sophos analysts discovered a suspicious device running network scans against CyberRoam, a Sophos subsidiary based in India. In some ways, the attack was run-of-the-mill, using commodity malware and common living off the land tactics. Other evidence, though, suggested that this was something different. For example, the attacker utilized a novel technique to pivot from on-premises devices to the cloud via an overly permissive identity and access management configuration to the Amazon Web Services Manager. Amazon Web Services Service Manager was quite a new technology and was quite a subtle misconfiguration. Sophos Chief Information Security Officer Ross McChurcher recalls, that was one of the first indicators that we were up against an interesting adversary. Later, the attackers deployed a novel rootkit called Cloud Snooper. Cloud Snooper was so stealthy that 2 third-party consultancies missed it in their analysis before Sophos eventually picked up on its presence. The goal of the attack, it seemed, was to collect information useful for future attacks against edge devices. It was a harbinger of what was to come. A 5-year evolution in TTPs, in Chinese TTPs. So what are TTPs? Let's look that up. So let's see. Let's look up TTPs, cybersecurity. TTPs, cybersecurity. What are TTPs? Cybersecurity tactics, techniques, and procedures. Okay, so that's obviously not obvious. So Chinese cyber threats blossomed from roughly 2020 to 2022 as attackers focused on identifying and breaching edge devices en masse. It worked thanks to the large quantity of devices in the wild that have internet-facing portals. Typically, these interfaces are designed for internal use. With COVID-19, though, more and more companies were allowing employees to connect from the open web. This provided a window for hackers with the right kind of credentials or vulnerabilities to get in. It helped too that around that same time, July 2021, China's Cyberspace Administration passed the regulations on the management of network product security vulnerability information rules. These mandates forced cybersecurity researchers to report vulnerabilities to the country's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology before disclosing to any other parties. It was designed to co-opt the whole country. Private citizens included into being assets for PRC objectives. McKersher says, Sophos argues with medium confidence that two notable campaigns during this period were facilitated by vulnerabilities, responsibility disclosed by researchers at universities in the Chinese city of Chengdu. Chinese advanced persistent threats were only interested in using compromised devices to attack the companies from whence they came. With varying degrees of success. Hold on, my Alexa. Alexa, stop. You have a rich Asian Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. What the hell? Alexa, stop. What the hell? It's like I'm telling Alexa to stop and she's not listening. So Chinese APTs were only interested in using compromised devices to attack the companies from whence they came, with varying degrees of success. They would often try to incorporate the devices into broader operational relay box networks. These operational relay box networks in turn offered higher level threat actors more sophisticated infrastructure from which to launch more advanced attacks and hide any trace of their origin. So I think this is pretty fascinating. So they use Cloud Snooper, and then they were able to, like, what does Cloud Snooper actually do? So like they use that in order to figure out their identity access management configurations were actually not that good. So Cloud Snooper attacks circumvents AWS firewall controls. So let's see. Researchers at Sophos discovered that the attack, while inspecting infected Linux and Windows EC2-based cloud infrastructure servers running in Amazon Web Services. The attack, which Sophos says is likely the handiwork of a nation state, uses a rootkit that not only gave the attackers remote control of the servers, but also provided a conduit for the malware to communicate with their command and control server. So let's look up rootkit for those who don't know. It's a set of software tools that enable an authorized user to gain control of a computer system without being detected. That not only gave the attackers remote control of the servers, but also provided a conduit for the malware to communicate with the command and control servers. According to Sophos, the rootkit also allowed the C2 server to remotely control servers physically located in the organization as well. The firewall policy was not negligent, but it could have been better, said Chet Wisniewski, principal research scientist at Sophos. The attackers masked their activity by hiding it in HTTP and HTTPS traffic. The malware was sophisticated enough that it would be hard to detect even with a tight security policy. And the AWS firewall, he said it was a wolf in sheep's clothing blending in with existing traffic. Sophos declined to reveal the victim organization, but said the attack appears to be a campaign to reach ultimate targets via the supply chain. With this as just one of the victims, just who is behind the attack is unclear. But the RAT is based on the root access. Where's RAT? Look up RAT. Okay, so search Google for RAT cybersecurity. Remote access Trojan, right. It's based on source code of the Ghost Remote Access Trojan, a tool associated with Chinese nation-state actors. Sophos also found some debug messages in Chinese. So that's how they knew. The attackers appeared to reuse the same remote access Trojan for both the Linux and Windows servers. We only observed the Linux remote access Trojan talking to one server and the Windows talking to a different control server, so we're not sure if it's even the same infrastructure. The C2 has been taken down, he noted. Just how the attackers initially hacked into the victim's network is unclear, but Sophos suggests one possibility is the attackers infiltrated a server via SSH. So for people who don't know what SSH is, we're going to look it up and get the secure shell. SSH or secure shell is a number protocol that allows users to securely access and manage remote computers and devices. So they went through the secure shell, and then they also don't have a lot of intel on the rootkit, such as which port it abused, nor do they know for sure what they were after. It's likely a supply chain attack targeting this organization to get all their downstream clients or customers. Oh, it's a supply chain attack to get their customers or clients. That's actually pretty like intelligent way to use it. Like instead of like trying to hack into the system to like try to take it over and get ransom, they're hacking into it in order to find out who their clients are and their customers and offering them a better deal for the same thing. One of the rare aspects of the attack, it targeted Linux with a rootkit, which was called Snoopy. They dropped the driver part of the rootkit and called it Snoopy. Had it been called a legitimate file name on the Linux box, we probably wouldn't have noticed it. Wolanowski said, and malware for Linux today has been relatively rare, too, with many cryptojackers, he added. Cloud Snooper's techniques for now appear to be rare, but like many unique attacks like this, it is only a matter of time before they are imitated. Every time we see something done in a targeted attack, usually by a nation state, a couple of years later, cyber criminals adopt similar attacks. This case is extremely interesting as it demonstrates the true multi-platform nature of modern attacks. So that's what Cloud Snooper is. So back to the 5-year evolution in Chinese TTP. So back to the article about Chinese advanced persistent threats. Chinese cyber threats blossomed from roughly 2020 to 2022 as attackers focused on identifying and breaching edge devices en masse. It worked thanks to the large quantity of devices in the wild that have internet-facing portals. Typically, these interfaces are designed for internal use. With COVID-19, though more and more companies were allowing employees to connect from the open web, this provided a window for hackers with the right kind of credentials or vulnerabilities to get in. It helped, too, that around the same time, July 2021, China's Cyberspace Administration passed the regulations on the management of network product security vulnerability information rules. These mandates forced cybersecurity researchers to report vulnerabilities to the country's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology before disclosing to any other parties. It was designed to co-opt the whole country, private citizens included, into being assets for People's Republic of China objectives. McCurcher says, Sophos argues with medium confidence that two notable campaigns during this period were facilitated by vulnerabilities responsibly disclosed by researchers at universities in the Chinese city of Chengdu. Chinese APTs were not only interested in using compromised devices to attack the companies from whence they came, with varying degrees of success, they would often try to incorporate the devices into broader operational relay box networks. These operational relay box networks in turn offered higher level threat actors more sophisticated infrastructure from which to launch more advanced attacks and hide any trace of their origin. What's happening now? After this noisy period, around the middle of 2022, Chinese advanced persistent threats shifted yet again. I'm a little hungry. Everybody, I'm so hungry right now. Ever since they've been focused on much more deliberate and targeted attacks against organizations of high value, government agencies, military contractors, researchers and development firms, critical infrastructure providers, and the like. These attacks follow no single pattern involving known and zero-day vulnerabilities, user I and the UEFI bootkits, and whatever other elements pair with active hands-on keyboard type attacks. They almost certainly would not be as sophisticated as they are, though without all the years of trial and error that occurred before. Evidence of that is just how effective these threat actors are at overcoming cybersecurity defenses. In recent years, they have demonstrated an ability to sabotage hotfixes for vulnerable devices and block evidence of their activity from reaching Sophos analysts. There's a clear arc of moving to stealthier and stealthier persistence in the activity that we've uncovered. So what they're saying is that the attacks are getting more sophisticated. They're trying to involve their population as well to be in on the attack. And then there's no single pattern of how the attacks are happening. So which is why that the red team is always winning, because the red team is innovating while the blue team is defending. So the blue team will defend against known patterns, but then if a new pattern comes up, then the red team has an advantage. So the attacks follow no single pattern involving known and zero-day vulnerabilities, user I and the UEFI bootkits, and whatever other elements pair of active hands-on keyboard type attacks. They almost certainly would not be as sophisticated as they are, though without all the years of trial and error that occurred before. Evidence of that is just how effective these threat actors are at overcoming cybersecurity defenses. In recent years, they have demonstrated an ability to sabotage hotfixes for vulnerable devices and block evidence of their activity from reaching Sophos analysts. There is a clear arc of moving to stealthier and stealthier persistence in the activity that we've uncovered. He explains how the first malware Wilson was bespoke for our devices. It wasn't really trying to hide. They were just banking on nobody looking. In the second wave of attacks, they learned a bunch of lessons remarkably quickly. The malware was not explicitly trying to hide, it was just smaller and naturally able to blend in a bit more. Then after that, they started kind of pulling out more interesting tactics: Trojan class files, memory resident malware, rootkits, bootkits. He concludes it'd be hard to speculate on what's next, except that they're going to be improving again. Okay, so yeah, so that's that. So we have some more news. So let's see. The overlooked importance of identifying riskiest users. This is the most recent news. So let's see what this one's talking about from Dark Reading. The overlooked importance of identifying riskiest users. See one, teach one, do one takes a page out of the healthcare playbook to reduce human vulnerabilities where they matter most in cybersecurity. So Garrett Hamilton, CEO and co-founder at Reach Security. It's a 4-minute read. So, and this is a commentary piece. In healthcare, the see one, teach one, do one model refers to an incremental learning process. Trainees first observe a procedure, then learn to teach it to others, then perform it themselves. This framework can be applied to cybersecurity by encouraging employees, especially those identified as high-risk users, to progress through a similar cycle of observation and education, followed by a combination of tool implementation and practice. This approach fosters a deep understanding of cybersecurity risk, increases tool efficiency, and empowers users to mitigate risk actively. As organizations accumulate a growing array of cybersecurity tools, many fail to consider that the riskiest users can be the weakest link in their defenses. Reach Security's analyst reveals that 80% to 90% of threats relate to just 3% to 5% of the organization's user population. This is further complicated if you consider that roughly 20% of the users in the company's most attacked group change monthly. These users, whether high-profile executives, employees of privileged access, or those who engage in risky behavior, have the potential to cause significant damage either through negligence or intentional actions. By focusing on high-risk individuals, organizations can address the root causes of many cybersecurity threats, allowing them to allocate resources more effectively and reduce reliance on sprawling security tools that attempt to protect everyone equally. Yeah, so I kind of agree with this because the riskiest person is the person in your organization because they have access to everything. Like, you have to trust them, and they're already inside. Like, people on the outside have a much higher hurdle than people on the inside. When it comes to managing the riskiest users, the see one, teach one, do one methodology can guide a more human-centered approach to cybersecurity. This model can be applied to not only help users understand the risk they face, but also enable them to become advocates for cybersecurity within the organization. It also reduces overall risk and tool sprawl. C1 Observation and Awareness. The first stage of the process is to identify the most attacked people, which can be done using a solution that provides visibility into the data that teams already have in place. For instance, syncing the central record of identity, for example, Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, Google Workspace, Okta can uncover high-risk user data. Once these high-risk users such as CEOs, senior executives, and IT personnel with elevated privileges are identified, security teams can provide personalized demonstrations of how they might be targeted, showcasing real-world examples such as phishing emails tailored to executives or potential data breaches from insecure networks. In addition, executives can observe how inadequate use of multi-factor authentication or improper handling of sensitive data can increase their exposure to threats. The C1 stage is crucial for both identifying the MAP and helping those users gain a baseline awareness of the specific threats they face. Teach one, educating others. In the second phase, high-risk users transition from observers to educators. The Teach One phase helps break down silos within an organization by fostering a shared responsibility for cybersecurity. For instance, an executive who has learned the dangers of targeted phishing can then relay that information to their team, strengthening collective awareness. Teaching cybersecurity concepts to others creates a ripple effect, reducing the reliance on technical tools by embedding good security practices into the organization's daily behavior. Do one, practice and implementation. Finally, the do one phase focuses on real-world application. Organizations face the dual challenge of pinpointing high-risk users and integrating data from multiple security tools to monitor these risks over time. This can be further complicated by the necessity to continuously update and enhance security measures across the enterprise to stay ahead of evolving threats. With continuous monitoring, teams can better identify and track shifts in the threat landscape, ensuring that those in the MAP are always under watch. So what's MAP again? Let's see. MAP. Most attacked people are always on the watch. Finally, putting forth a holistic security strategy that is both user and device aware will ensure that protective measures are as personalized and effective as possible. Knowing where risk lives introduces an ability to focus. An ability to focus allows the teams to see the biggest impact on the smallest number of folks. From there, that focus group learns and teaches. Once they have knowledge, they're open to ways in which they can be protected and can use the security controls in the most efficient ways possible. A different approach to risk-based management, managing human-based cybersecurity risk, requires a shift toward a more focused strategy that considers the riskiest users in your organizations. By identifying and supporting the riskiest users with the see one, teach one, do one model, organizations can reduce vulnerabilities where they matter most. Yay! Okay. All right, everybody, that's it for today, and I'll see you tomorrow.